Hey guys, it's Jackson, and with me should be Lloyd, but unfortunately, Lloyd is currently concussed, so I will be filling in for his part on this screencast as well. But, anyways, what I'm going to be presenting is a little soliloquy that Macbeth himself goes through late in scene 1 of Act 2, where he is contemplating the murder of King Duncan, and he begins to hallucinate and have visions of a dagger. So with that being said, the dagger, that's going to be a very important portion of the screencast today, because that's kind of, I guess, a motif, so to speak, that Shakespeare constantly refers back to throughout this little soliloquy. So, is this a dagger which I see before me, the handle toward my hand? Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. So these first three lines, they're pretty straightforward, not too overly Shakespearean. But we get to this fourth line: "Art thou not fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight?" And in this fourth line, Macbeth refers to this notion of fatal vision. And this is showcasing something that Shakespeare does famously well, which is using his ability to create plays on words, to create things such as double entendres, which is exactly what we believe that Shakespeare is doing in this instance. He utilizes this notion of fatal vision to note that he is being compelled to kill Duncan by this vision of this dagger. But at the same time, he's also noting that he is aware he is hallucinating. So this reference to the hallucination poses a good opportunity for us to make an interesting reference between Macbeth and an event in the real world. So just allow me to pull up a picture quickly. Now, this is a man named Joshua Lambert. Joshua Lambert is a convicted psychopath who was charged with the murder of both his elderly grandparents and the kidnapping of his great aunt. His reasoning for this being, he was having hallucinations. While there aren't really any accounts of how the hallucinations actually were, unlike Macbeth's hallucination of the dagger, it's pretty clear that in both instances, both men are being prompted to do dark deeds with the hallucinations they experience. Now, granted, Macbeth wasn't on methamphetamine, as was Joshua Lambert. They're still having pretty dangerous hallucinations, which lead them to do some pretty bad things. So, moving on, we move to the next lines, in which Macbeth asks, "Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation proceeding from the heat oppressed brain?" He is now beginning to become less aware of the fact that he's hallucinating, and become more inclined to believe that the dagger is in fact material. He notes, "I see thee yet in form as palpable as this which I now draw," as he pulls his dagger from his holster. "Thou marshalst me in the way I was going." Now, I'd like to pause for a moment and talk about the word marshalst. Now, it's clearly not a word we hear in everyday language as much that we get from Shakespeare. But marshalst, it basically means to usher or to lead into a certain direction. And in the case of Macbeth, the way that he was going. Now, the way that he was going, this basically just refers back to he was going out of his way to kill Duncan. He was debating, but now he is more leaning towards it. This hallucination of the dagger is slowly pushing him toward making that decision of actually killing Duncan. In the next line, he notes the coincidence of how unexpected it was that he would have this this hallucination of a dagger. And such an instrument I was to use, he says. Oh, how ironic it is that I was to use a dagger to kill Duncan. And now I'm having this hallucination of a dagger. Could this really be such a coincidence? Mine eyes are made the fools of the other senses, or else worth all the rest. Now, this basically just refers to the fact that Macbeth cannot tell if his eyes are the only sense that are being true to him, or if they are completely deceiving him. I see thee still, and on thy blade in dudgeon gouts of blood. Now, dudgeon and gouts, those are two pretty complex words. Dudgeon is the handle of a dagger or a blade, a sword of any sort, and gouts, that's basically synonymous for droplets, which was not so before. There is no such thing. Again, he's second-guessing himself. While he is still being inclined to do this dark deed, he is still towing the line between wanting to do it and not wanting to do it. It is this bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes. Now o'er the one-half world nature seems dead, and wicked dreams abuse the curtained sleep. The one-half world nature seems dead. That little portion of the sentence just refers to the half of the world in which it is now nighttime. And Macbeth is just imagining a sort of nightmarish world in which all sorts of different dark deeds as the one he is about to perform are taking place. Witchcraft celebrates pale Hecate's offerings. Now, Hecate, let me just find the picture real quick. Oh, here she is. So Hecate she's a Greek goddess. She's usually known for being a goddess of magic and witchcraft, but there are other various things that the Greeks used to associate with her, such as crossroads, entranceways, dogs, light, the moon, knowledge of herbs and poisonous plants, ghosts, sorcery, all sorts of different things. But basically what Shakespeare gets out of Hecate is her being the goddess of witchcraft, and he is summing up the evilness of the deed which Macbeth is about to carry out when he refers to her. So I think that about wraps up this passage. I hope this helped to maybe comprehend Macbeth's little soliloquy a bit better, to kind of break down and get an analysis of the overall gist of the passage. But anyways, thanks so much for listening.